Good evening. It is now 7 p.m. and I would like to start the meeting of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Item number 1. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Duffin, Councillor Morris Cook, with Councillor Green substituting, and Councillor Gledhill. Are there any other apologies I need to be aware of? Or? That's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor Snell, not a member of this committee, but was due to be here and is unwell. And all those who are unwell, we send our best wishes to them. Item 2, approval of General Public Services Committee minutes. Do members approve the minutes set out in the agenda for the 5th of October 2023 committee? And do members approve the extraordinary minutes set out in the agenda for the 1st of November 2023 committee?
Great.
And are there any comments? Okay. Item 3, urgent items of business. I have not agreed to any items of urgent business. Item 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to declare a declaration of interest?
No.
Okay. Item 5, verbal update on investment advisory panel. Councillor Snell is unable to join us this evening due to being unwell. I will ask for this item to be moved to the next meeting. Item 6, Quarter 2 forecast revenue and capital outturn. Can I ask Stephen Mayor to present this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. The paper is as set out. If I give you the overview and the key features of it, and then happy to take any questions clearly. You'll see from the first page, the third column of figures, that at the moment we are projecting a £1.5 million underspend for the year. That's a £500,000 improvement from the last quarter. Two main elements within there. The Directorates are slightly overspending at £2.4 million. And Treasury is compensating for that at 3.9 million under. Overleaf on the second page, the HRA is projecting a surplus for the year. All of these are set out in more detail later in the paper. You get an analysis, you get a table, you get some commentary. The DSG is projecting to break even, and Public Health Grant likewise is projecting to break even. There's analyses of the capital programme in there. There's quite a bit of slippage on the capital programme, and we will be bringing the full capital programme, as members probably are aware, to the special scrutiny on the 14th of February. There'll be a full analysis of that there. Expenditure control panels. We have included for your information an appendix that sets out the process of the control panels, how they're working, what has been experienced through those. And there's also a delivery risk assurance appendix at section appendix 6 that reports that quite a large proportion of the savings in year are on track. See the recommendations, and the overview table is given at table 1, which is the 5th page in, and it's the usual style. You can see most of the areas are improving. The green to the right with the arrows pointing upwards for those in black and white. 3 where it's getting slightly worse, Housing General Fund, which is temporary accommodation, legal and governance, smaller figure, consequence of workload and reduction in income, and place, legal costs, agency costs, Tameside Theatre, and an inability to charge certain costs of the capital programme, which repeats through several areas of the report, and I can come on to later, Chair, if that's helpful. The rest of the report gives you the detail, as I say, by department, and then goes into the HRA, DSG and the capital programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members wish to ask questions of Mr. Mayor. Would like to go first? Go on then. We'll invite our substitute to do it. And thank you for being here, Councillor Green, substituting.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Polly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your report. With the 2021 accounts still open, with potential further issues that could be found, in your opinion, what is the likelihood and what is the potential possible severity for the Council?
The accounts are still open. The auditors I met with yesterday, I think it was, expressed confidence that they could deliver the accounts signed off and certified by the end of March. I think that is challenging, shall I say. I'm afraid I cannot. You are quite right in that as they go through that, things may come out of that. I cannot quantify that for you until I receive the audit report. It's just not possible to say. The same point may then apply to the following 2 years' accounts. So as we get the information, we'll report it to the audit committee and clearly bring it to scrutiny. But until those accounts are closed, you don't have a straight edge.
Okay, in the HROD and Transformation Department forecasted to be 799,000 over budget. With the transformation having 12,515,000 one-off payment, what has happened there to get a 799,000 over budget?
The HR and OD is a recurrent base budget. The money you refer to is a one-off resource for dealing with investment and transformation. The main element within the HR and OD is what I touched on in the introduction. The Council has, up to the previous year, charged some significant sums to capital when they are not capital schemes. The classic example that we talk about is computer systems. So many years ago, a computer system was a big box in a big room like this. It's a physical asset. If you work on that, you can charge that to capital. Most computer systems now are effectively light, heat and light. It's a service. You switch it on, it works. You cannot charge that expenditure to capital, so you have to charge it to revenue. This is not something new, should have been resolved several years ago, quite frankly. Therefore, it creates an immediate pressure on revenue in the year that you do address it. That is the bulk of the problem in this particular department.
Thank you. So with that, that will be resolved moving forward.
That will be a matter for your scrutiny committee on the 14th of February and Cabinet towards the end of February. So what we can do, as we are doing, as we draw up the medium-term financial strategy, we're taking account of the in-year pressures that it would appear difficult for departments to resolve themselves. We add those into the MTFS, as it's called, and then we roll that forward. Now, if we do that and that gets agreed, then these pressures should not appear next year. What it does mean, of course, is your long-term sustainability takes longer to resolve itself.
I'll go back to going on. Under Children's Services, placements with have a current overspend of 2.153 million. Can we please clarify what we're going to do moving forward to ensure basically we continue giving these vulnerable children the support, and maybe does that department need a higher budget?
First comment is that this is not unusual and is actually quite low in comparison to many other councils that we know about, and you may have seen the news in various areas as well. A bit like the previous comment, we will be addressing within the MTFS the current in-year spends and potential pressures that we know about. I think, as you'll have seen through the budget process, children's and adults have been relatively protected, reflecting the parties and the council's desire to protect them. So yes, there will be some pressures on those departments. There always are. They're about 2/3 of the council's expenditure, but they are being protected. We will reflect the pressures, and I know it's the council's commitment to maintain these services.
Well, go and keep going.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay. On page 31, it says that the counter fraud and enforcement is over budget by 64,000, and that was mainly due to the fact of vacancies. How has that been allowed to happen to create that overspend? Yeah, no problem. Yes, please. Yeah, no problem. Currently, there's a 64,000 overspend, mainly due to vacancies in the Department of Counter Fraud and Enforcement. How, as a council, have we allowed vacancies to create such an overspend?
I think what's happened is the shortage of staff means they haven't been able to recover the income that they should have done. I think it is not unique to this service. A lot of areas of the council are struggling to recruit, and this is an example of it. This is equally an example where it is often quite useful to employ agency staff if you can identify them for this service, because they could potentially more than offset their costs by the income generated. So I think it's a consequence of everything that the council is facing. We are not struggling, but we are in a number of areas finding it challenging to attract some people.
Okay, I'll carry on.
Oh, keep going.
Okay, on page... That's how we roll. On page 38, we've got housing development. There is a forecast variation in doubling what the current budget is actually currently set out. Could we go in further? Why and how are we going to control this moving forward?
This should resolve itself towards the year end. What tends to happen is that these schemes incur expenditure, and until they are approved as part of the capital programme, the charge is made to revenue, which is right and proper. So there will be expenditure on such as Teviots and Blackshots that we will be bringing through the capital programme in February. If those get approved by members, then a lot of that expenditure will then be charged to those schemes. So you see an increase in capital and a reduction in revenue. So this should, to a degree, resolve itself through that mechanism.
Thank you. And so moving on to the... could you give some more clarity and speak more about the general fund slippage of 22.13 million and how we got to that place?
The capital programme?
Yeah, the general fund slippage. Thank you.
We've undertaken a review of the capital programme, quite a detailed review of capital programme, finance colleagues working with individual directors, and effectively we've done a cleanse of the capital programme. And I think what has happened is a lot of schemes have been left there, so they were set up at a point in time, they didn't progress, but nobody brought them forward for members to consider to either stop them or reprofile them. So the HRA ones, for example, we've reprofiled some expenditure by a year or so. So what we have also brought about, which has been to the Capital Programme Board and been to the Finance Recovery Board, is an action plan for improvements in the monitoring of the capital programme. That action plan will be reflected in the Council's budget papers, so all members will see it in February, March. So I think to some degree capital tends to slip in councils, because they are big schemes. And to some degree I think there is a history of not properly tracking and cleansing and bringing forward variances for members to consider.
Thank you. With this in mind and everything we've just gone through, how confident are you that we're going to hit the 23-24 budget?
The 23-24 budget I'm very confident about. I do have no doubt whatsoever at this point in time. Things can change, obviously, things always can change, that the 23-24 will come in on balance, yes.
I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Who'd like to go next? Councillor Worrell.
I'll ask a few while Georgette's still working. So I was looking at the direction of travel, and you know, it's fair to say that littered through this, we've got a fair few going downwards. And is this a real concern, though? You know, like, or do you see that these will come back up? Because I've not seen direction of travel with that many littered red for a long time, and that doesn't give me any, you know, hope that, you know, are they going to carry on going down? Are we likely to bring them back up? You know, they're littered right the way through this. And it is a little bit worrying, you know, the amount that are going the wrong way. When there is such tight controls in it. You know, everybody's budgets, everybody has to ask to do anything. And if we can't control them this year, and we've got another £18 million, you know, and this is with people just trying to meet last year's 9, where does that leave us for trying to find 18.6 next year?
Well, the 18 million, as you know, has been through scrutiny. A large proportion of that, in my view, is extremely robust at this point in time. We're only in December. It will be a challenge, and nobody should underestimate, and you clearly don't underestimate the challenge, but it is a totally deliverable figure. 18 million in a council of this size. I think what's this evidence, so you're right, there are reds, there are also a lot of greens. If we take it as a departmental whole, you've only 3 going the wrong way and the rest are going the right way. But I think what it emphasises, and it's something we as officers, and officers of this committee can push through lead members and through directors, is to keep not a total focus, but a major focus on the revenue budget position. You do not want this as a whole going the wrong way. There will always be variances. Councils are big, complex organisations, things change, and there will always be pressures. But this year will balance overall, should balance overall. Next year is, in my view, deliverable, challenging, but deliverable. If I may, I think the real focus is to look beyond next year, quite frankly, and start looking for 25-6 and beyond. It's the long-term financial planning and change planning that you need. Yeah, that is the pressure, as you've clearly identified. We will absolutely utilise all the funds that we get. You've referenced the Teviots and Blackshots. We have done an analysis of the right to buy receipts. We are preparing a paper to discuss with DLUC to seek the best that we can for this council through those receipts, and we are hoping to get that through them in pre or post Christmas and have a discussion with them in the new year. So we are doing everything we can to try and support the housing service.
Do you think it's looking favourable? Would it look? Is it the sort of thing? Is it robust enough to look favourable?
The paper we will produce will, if agreed, be favourable and is very robust, but I clearly cannot speak for DLUC and their response.
I feel like the Thameside Theatre always gets a bit of a rough deal in reports, and you know I'm one of the biggest supporters of the theatre, so it'd be wrong of me to not look at this page 30. So what we need to bear in mind is that we need to give the theatre the best fighting chance, and what this is showing is, you know, an overspend, but at the same time we're just about. Boris allowed the theatres to open in May 2021. We didn't open our theatre until September. And now we're only allowing them to make bookings 3 months in advance, when acts that we want to book for it need a year to 18 months. So I think that we need to either be 2 feet in the camp or 2 feet out of the camp with the Thameside Theatre, because we're just about to put service charges up. We put them up earlier in the year. We're just about to do it again, and I do feel like it's a death by 1,000 cuts for the Thameside, because if it's showing this as an overspend, we just need to give them the chance to be able to operate fairly and on a level playing field. So yeah, I just needed to point out that That's not because people don't want to go to the theatre. It's because of the restrictions around the theatre, and you can't. And I don't want to get to any budget setting where people say, "But the theatre doesn't wash its face." It's because I think that we've got a noose around the neck of the theatre, and it's just being like tightened. And there's probably not even an answer for you from that. But I just needed to say that, you know, I picked up that the Thameside Theatre is in there as showing a shortfall. An overspend when actually it's not a fair overspend, I don't think, and we need to give them a good chance. Transformation budget. I mean, I still don't know what's been spent. I know how much has been spent, but could we have a break? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Colleagues have prepared an analysis. I am aware of the question. The analysis will be shared. I've got to go through it. I think sometime next week we'll get you more of a breakdown of what's in the figure that we quote. But it is significant underspending, as you can see.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. It's just I do keep asking for that. The capitalisation for this year is going to be huge, isn't it? You know, it's more than our... Is it more than our annual budget that we're going to be asking for?
That will come out of the MTFS, which is under review at the moment. I can't go into detail on things that might impact on that, but the number will change. But I'm sorry, I can't give you any more detail on that at the moment. But it will be a significant figure, yes.
So the report says 180 million. Do you expect that to go up or down?
That is the figure that was originally in the budget for this coming year. I'm not wishing to avoid answering the question. You might want to go into a private session at the end, but the figure will change.
Okay. I don't know if this is really that you could walk me through this on page 38. Again, it's the HRA is showing lots of direction of travel down. Could you walk us through that chart on page 38?
The main figure, the main one, is the consequence of what we referred to earlier, where the housing development line is forecasting no overspend. That's because we're not charging the costs on these developments to capital until the schemes get approved and updated through the capital programme. Now, if and when those schemes do get improved, and that 595 should considerably reduce, then your contribution to reserves will change, so the actual magnitude of the figures will change considerably. Okay. You'll probably see that at Q3, because by then we will be producing the budget papers.
Okay. Thank you. Did you want to say anything here? Yeah. Do you want to go?
So, sorry to be going back over, but just picking up on Councillor Worrell's point on the Thames side, on the same page, on page 30 at 3.8.2, the Economic Development Service is forecasting to overspend by, and then it quotes that it largely relates to a revised reduced forecast for the income from the Thames side, which it is that, as Councillor Worrell has just explained, because we indirectly are inhibiting their revenue, their ability to generate revenue.
What we've tried to reflect in here is the financial reality of where the theatre is in this year. Perhaps I could suggest I take that up with service colleagues and get you a note on the operation of the theatre.
A briefing note would be really good, like a complete review of the service there. Thank you.
So, obviously we spent quite a bit of time with an extraordinary council last night to, I think that's our fourth one, and I must compliment all our backroom staff and democratic services. I mean, the agendas have been coming thick and fast. That said, again on page 30, I'm looking at 3.8.3, Lower Thames Crossing, the overspend there. Is there, because of the challenges that we've had both in regeneration and with Directorate of Place and with staffing levels within the overall departments. Is there any possibility we took the eye off the ball when it comes to recharging? We do an awful lot of work to evidence-base certain stances from the council or make defensive. Are we in a position to charge some of this back to the Lower Thames Crossing? Are we making sure that our planning advisory service and our pre-application services are not just engaging with developers, but we are, charging correctly, competitively, as we established last night? We are a target for growth, and there are a lot of people making approaches to us, a lot of demands on the service, and with all of those challenges, I just have a nervousness that perhaps we've took the eye off of the ball in actually generating revenue where we should be from a service that we're providing. Thank you.
In the round, we took a policy, as you'll know, through scrutiny over the summer, where we agreed an updated approach to fees and charges, full cost recovery, and colleagues have done quite a lot of work across a whole range of charges, some of which went through scrutiny in the summer, and some of which will come back on the 14th of February with a line-by-line analysis. What I will do, though, is I'll pick this up with the colleague who also looks after the Thameside Theatre. I'll get my staff to do a particular focus on it and make sure we are charging as we should be, and give you the report back in February.
Thank you, Chair. If we could, I would appreciate that, because I just know that every service is under a great deal of pressure, and obviously with the commissioners and trying to deliver reports and everything. We just need that little bit of comfort, I think, as members, that the day-to-day housekeeping is not getting lost in some of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Wall, who gave way to Councillor Polly before, so thank you.
I do have another question, and I just want to talk about the slippage on the capital programmes. And how at risk are these programmes? So I'm on page 44, and I'm looking at the Tilbury Towns Fund, there's the Grays Towns Funds, and are these projects at risk of not happening?
A lot of the slippage and the projects are things that colleagues are saying they do not. As you'll be aware, we have to reduce the capital programme general funded. So if one of these schemes is a general funded capital programme, then we effectively have to get all of that borrowing down to virtually nil. As officers and FRB, we've got it down over 5 years to around about £5 million, so roughly £1 million a year. So you will see a lot of slippage and a lot of proposed stoppage on capital schemes if they're funded from borrowing, because we literally cannot borrow. HMT and DLUC will not allow the council to borrow for any new capital works. You can borrow to refinance your debt. We are going back on the HRA as a reference on right to buy. So you will see coming through scrutiny on the 14th a lot of schemes where it is the view of officers at the moment that these have to stop because we literally cannot borrow. And in the council circumstances, you really need to minimise your borrowing. So yes, things will slip and stop.
So would that be things like the health hubs, and the youth zone? Was we putting up any money for the youth zone, or is that completely externally funded?
I don't know the fine grain of what's externally funded and not, but if something is externally funded, then no, it's not at risk. It should be challenged in the same way, because irrespective of funding source, you will tend to see capital schemes that just slip. So we have to keep working with colleagues to see why they are slipping and stopping them slipping. So if we have the funds, the schemes can progress. If we don't have external funding of any description, then you really are required to get that down to as low as you possibly can.
And that's across everything. I think I'm just like. So I think it is. So that could put some of the big projects in the Grays and Tilbury funds at significant risk.
Some of the big projects have been not entirely financially successful, shall I say, in the past. So yes, the same point applies. If it's a general funded project, unless we can find alternative resources, or unless DLUC or HMT give us a dispensation, you literally cannot borrow as a council for anything that is new capital expenditure.
Thank you. Councillor Green. Now go on, Councillor Green.
That was a comment, not a question.
Yeah, go on.
Thank you, Chair. On page 56, under housing development, we've got under there for a budget of redevelopment of council offices for residential accommodation.
It's gone.
Why is that still on here?
It's
Page,
on,
it's on under housing development at the top, second row down.
under Appendix T. You know there.
Redevelopment of council officers.
Yes.
I'd have to take that one back. It's a degree of detail I don't have and find out for you. So I'll find out exactly what that 83 is and what's happening with it.
Thank you. Leave it there for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just turn your mic off, please, Councillor Green. Councillor Polly, did you want to come back in? I'm sure I saw your hand up. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. It was more just to pass a comment. We had the youth zone, obviously, as you know, at planning, and my understanding from the reports that I've read that our contribution as an authority was the land, but the actual development and the ongoing delivery of the youth zone is self-funding. We're not contributing to that. And I do think that there has been some external funding secured for that as well quite recently. But I will, with that, I think we do have to. I know one of the subjects that Health Overview and Scrutiny have also been very concerned about is the Tilbury IMC, and that is predominantly because through the NHS, not through the council, because that is their project, not ours. Thank you.
I'll follow up the use zone for you and confirm.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? I won't repeat any of the points made by my colleagues around the table, mainly because they've either been answered or you'll take it back and find the detail. I just want to ask a quite general question, really, in terms of these numbers. So the exceptional financial support from central government, that is essentially a fancy way of saying borrowing. And so I'll take that, raise the eyebrow. So 180 million. And then on page 34, we have the cost of borrowing, the actual things that are seen as borrowing at 50 million. So in a sense, it's almost like the figure should sort of be 231 million rather than 180 million for capitalisation, 50 to 51 million cost of borrowing. In total, it kind of comes much higher, and it sort of sounds worse if you lump all of these costs together. So I'm not sure it's a specific question, but more if you have any comments to make on what I've said.
Certainly, the 180 million is a capitalisation direction, as I'm sure you're familiar with. That is not the cost of the capitalisation direction, it's the amount that the Council asked for in this year to allow it to balance its budget. There is then a cost of that borrowing. So it's a bit like taking out a mortgage. The mortgage is X. The cost of that mortgage is what you pay annually. Some of a capitalisation direction does cost you money if it is for new borrowing, some doesn't as much if it's just historic issues you are sorting. I think it also links to the previous question, perhaps we could pick it up at the end.
Yeah, I'm going to just a bit of advice from officers. After we've spoken here, could we have a closed session, then do the recommendations, and then carry on the meeting with the work programme and stuff like that? Because I think there's a few questions that we'd really like to open in. Okay.
Unless you want to do the recommendations, do the work programme, and then go into exec session.
Couldn't that be a better way of...
Would that work,
Okay.
Stephen, or not? Or is it when you're
Okay.
ready, Chair?
Are we all okay to go into closed session now? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Polly, you have a question for Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair. At previous committee, we've and at Cabinet, we have challenged the appointment of the PwC to assist us to identify further savings. Just wondering if there is a progress report on that, if they're in place, if we feel that they are moving forward with what they've been tasked to do, please.
They're absolutely moving forward. They are working extremely hard with officers. We meet them weekly on how they are progressing as a whole. They meet with the chief executive. They meet with the individual holders. They're doing an awful lot of analysis. The colleagues in finance are working with them. You will get the final business cases at the 14th of February scrutiny. They are going live on the 1st of July, so they're not 1st of April savings, they are 1st of July savings to allow necessary consultation on any impacts, etc. And there will be a further increase in 25-26, so it's a little bit early to be precise. Things will change, as they always do change in all of these proposals, they move on. But yes, absolutely, they are working very hard on this.
That's very reassuring.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just in terms of summing up here, before we move to the recommendations, Councillor Green, thank you for substituting, and not just substituting, but your range of questions. You know, if any, you know, you wouldn't get people thinking you were here just for one night. You know, so you've shown put a lot of work into it, and that's what I demand of people on the committee, that they work hard and do the details. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Wall, very specific questions, particularly your stuff around slippage and projects, and also you're very consistent in linking this to the fate of the Thames side as well, and very consistent there. Councillor Polly, lots of stuff on engagement and asking the questions we need to ask really on keeping our eyes on the ball and not and again not slipping, and the fact that yourself and Councillor Wall's questions around the Towns Fund sort of merged with the questions of the IMC, and I just think that shows a lot of sort of grouped working, which is really good. And I'm sensing, unless anyone says to the contrary, I know I raised one of the recommendations privately, but actually I'm sensing that we could be in agreement with these, unless anyone indicates otherwise.
I'd like him to, if you can.
I tried. Okay.
Sorry, Stephen. I know you're rushing.
I knew where he was going.
I tried. Okay. But I will bow to democratic services on this one.
No,
it's okay. I'm fine. Recommendation 1.1. Note and comment on the overall forecast general fund outturn position for quarter 2 is an underspend of 1.521 million.
90.
Yep. Yeah, we've done that, yeah. 1.2, note that directors with adverse variances will continue to review directorate budgets and identify mitigating actions to resolve the forecast pressure against the 2023-24 budget.
90.
Yep. 1.3, note the potential risks to the position listed noted in section 4 and the following specific risks noted within the report. A, there is an ongoing assessment of the investment portfolio values which remain under assessment pending reporting in quarter 3. And B, note that there are ongoing wider financial accounting assessments related to prior periods which may also need to be considered. Agreed?
90.
Yep. 1.4, note and comment on the positions set out in respect of the HRA, the DSG and public health, which project to deliver the budget within the existing funding envelopes. Noted. 1.5, note and comment on the capital programme, the current projected general fund slippage of 22 million, the HRA slippage of 12.59 million, and the outcomes of the external capital programme review.
90.
Yep. Note the proposed changes to the capital programme for 23-24 as set out in Section 8 and Appendices 7 and 8. Thank you. 1.7. Note that the position will remain provisional as further substantive work is undertaken, notably in preparation of historical accounts which could have an impact on current or future years. 1.8. Note Thurrock's 24-25 schools funding formula to be implemented as set out in Section 6. And 1.9. Note the review of the expenditure control panels included in Appendix 6.
So noted.
Thank you. And I believe that's all we have for Mr. Mayor to be part of, so you're excused if you'd like to go to your next meeting. Item 7, the work programme. Obviously, one item will have to go there now due to Councillor Snell's absence tonight, so his verbal update. Is there anything... it was originally meant to be the last meeting of the municipal year, but we have the extraordinary one now as well. So for this meeting, though, on the 1st of February, is there anything else we'd like to see included in the work programme?
Was it just a briefing note on the transformation? It's not a report, is it? No. So we can pick it up in this meeting if there's anything in it. Okay, thank you.
So, with the inclusion of Councillor Snell's verbal report, that will be the work programme for the 1st of February. And then, obviously, we have a full meeting on Valentine's Day in 2024 in the Chamber. Everyone's invited. And see what time it finishes this time. Okay.
Okay, get chocolate somewhere.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, I would like to thank you all, and I'm closing the meeting at 7:45.